Hey everyone. So this month in our Gathering of Like Minds, we turned back to the book, The Yamas and Yamas by Deborah Adele. So if you haven't picked it up, go ahead and do that. And this month, our talk was about Satya. Satya means truthfulness, and it is directly related to ahimsa, no harm, or nonviolence. So if we think about sitting within the seat of our truth, when we speak, as long as we're coming from a place of no harm, it's like we're in this beautiful dance, allowing ourselves to move on our path, express from that place, and honoring that place of not harming ourselves as well as others. So, like the other yoga talks, allowing ourselves to refer to the book as well as giving yourself an opportunity to answer some questions. So, doing your own journaling. So, if you didn't grab a piece of paper and pen, go ahead, press pause, and come back. So here, Miss Adele, she says, truth demands integrity to life and to our own self that is more than not telling a simple lie. So integrity lies here. So allowing ourselves to steer our lives from a place of truth. Truth is here. So how we think, how we speak, and how we act comes from this marriage of the willpower and the courage and the integrity of moving in our truth, which, you know, that saying, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. It totally applies here. So think of it as bigger than just simple lies. Simple lies. Allowing yourself to move in life with your own truth means maybe you have to create new traditions, new rituals in your life, right? So you were born and then you were raised, and whoever raised you gave you certain beliefs or certain ways of thinking, right? And then you move on, and maybe you go to college, maybe you go right into work, maybe you go into the service. And there again, we're going to be molded by our environment. So we have to navigate from when we were born and being raised to then working, school, and then maybe we move into family, right? We get married, have kids. Maybe that's not your route. That's okay. But there's different stages in our life. So making sure that we adjust our truths according to where we are today. Like, think about it. If I were still moving my body like I did when I was 25, I would have a lot of trouble. Okay, so I have to adjust my physical activity to where I am today. And if I'm not, then I'm lying to myself. Okay, so that's where those lies come in, and that's also where you're doing harm to yourself. So allowing yourself, I like to call it the every 10 years. So every 10 years, giving yourself a little self-talk. You know, is there anything that I have to change, and what and where I am, so that I know I'm living in my truth. So here she says, when we are real rather than nice, when we choose self-expression over self-indulgence, when we choose growth over the need to belong, and when we choose fluidity over rigidity, we begin to understand the deeper dynamics of truthfulness, and we begin to taste the freedom and goodness of this jewel. That's pretty cool. I have never been a sugarcoat kind of girl. I understand there is a such thing as gray, but I've always just kind of liked the whole black and white. Give it to me. Just lay it out. You don't have to sugarcoat things with me. I'll be okay. That's not the way for a lot of people in our society, especially our country. And so with that, there comes that whole nonviolence, right? So when you're moving forward and navigating your growth, your expansion, and you go to express that to others, are you acknowledging who your audience is? So there's a lot of mindfulness that has to happen here. You don't want to directly try to offend people, but at the same time, be open to our views don't have to align. So where I'm sitting and where you're sitting might be totally different on many different topics, whether it's political, religion, race. There's so many different topics that we can go on. We don't have to see eye to eye, but we do need to have an open mind to hear the people that are in front of us. And also, if you don't agree, that's okay. That's okay. And when you feel the harm coming, not towards you. So if you feel, all right, I'll go there. Family dinner, my family were pretty open-minded and pretty dynamic. And then another part of my family, pretty conservative, not always aware of their audience. And so a conversation starts and I can see my kids get really, really uncomfortable. And so I just raised my hand like I was in school and caught their attention. And I was like, hey, you know what? Not everyone feels the same as you, because they were kind of being, I don't know, they were making jokes and it wasn't funny. And so I just made them aware that, hey, you know what? How about we don't go here if you're not going to do it in a compassionate way? And they both looked at me like they had no clue. And these are close family members of mine. And they just they were like, what? And I was like, okay, obviously this is not something, in my mind, I'm like, obviously they have no idea. Like, it's just not, they have no way of hearing what I'm trying to say. So I just said, let's drop the topic, because my kids got up and left because they were appalled at the actions of our family members. And that's okay. So I just played the part of, okay, I'm going to say something and we're just going to stop it. If they don't hear me, then we're just going to cut the cord. Drop the topic. I might be 20 years younger than y'all, but okay, I'm going to play mom. And I didn't do it mean. I just told them, this, not here. If you want to talk about this, go somewhere else, not here. So we need to, that was me speaking my truth. And I wasn't mean. I was just speaking for my kids. So truthfulness can be really hard. It can be actually really, really uncomfortable. Whenever I go to do something that might be going against the grain, I always feel a little warmth inside, maybe the butterflies, a little bit of nervousness. And when that rises, I usually know that I'm supposed to keep going because I'm going somewhere uncomfortable, but somewhere that is kind of exciting. And at the same time, while I'm going there, I'm going to let go of the outcome, because sometimes when we move into our truth, it doesn't matter how we land, just that we went there, right? Journey never traveled, you don't know, right? So allow yourself to move on your path. And allow yourself to move into that space that doesn't always feel good. So So, this is kind of cool. The whole nice versus real. It's kind of like you trying to fit in where maybe you don't, right? So you just go ahead and you mold yourself so that you fit in. That's totally a disservice to yourself. And one of my daughters shared a great thing that happened just a couple weekends ago. She was hanging out with a group of people, all acquaintances, but they invited her to come hang out. And she's a lot like me, where if she thinks something, she might say it and not realize that, oh my God, I just said what I thought. And so she did that, not knowing this group and how they were going to react. And it turned out okay. And so they're trying to make sure that we understand where we are, making sure that, number one, you've created boundaries. Number two, you're safe. And number three, you're not demoting yourself, if you want to say that, right? And I think that's one reason why she got invited to this group, because she's so authentic to who she is. And she speaks from a place of, it came up, I'm going to say it, and what do you think, right? And we need more people like that. And this group of people totally were like, yeah, man, like, all right, cool. We hear you. We hear you. So Miss Adele says, what is driving you to distort yourself or silence yourself or say yes when you mean no? Huge right now, right? So we're in a place of the holiday season. And I can remember going to a Christmas party with friends of ours. And when it was just the four of us, so it's another couple, when it was just the four of us, they acted so relaxed. And then we went to a party and they were totally different. And just to observe that, I was like, wow, how much energy does that take? Right? So it's not, if you're living in your truthfulness, you should feel like you're blossoming. But when you're trying to mold with the party that you're in, it's you just giving and giving and giving in a way that it's actually depleting your energy. Carl Jung would ask, what is so dangerous in the moment about the truth that you are choosing to lie? The good old, I want to be liked. So take a moment here. What I want you to do is think about all of the different groups of people that you acknowledge, right? Your friends, your community, church, family, whatever. And ask yourself if you put on a different disguise, a different mask. So pause, take a moment, and write it all down. And on top of that, hold on. On top of that, why? Why? Ready? Pause and come back. So here you are back. And I'm a true believer that when we write things down, when we speak, we actually hear from our heart. And so sometimes it can be really tough. So be nice and patient with yourself, because whatever you wrote down, you're not alone. A lot of us have been there, done that. I've been there, done that. I can remember a time that I was substituting a yoga class, teaching for someone else who's completely opposite of me. I'm very fiery and sassy and unfiltered, and this individual is really soft and always act like a stoner, just like totally like laid back. And I went in to sub for this individual, and I was like, okay, I'll turn my individual, Joe, we'll say it was Joe. I'm going to put on my Joe attire. And then 2 seconds into it, I was like, yeah, you guys, it's not going to happen. Like, I can't do that. It felt, even me saying it felt weird. So if ever you feel weird and uncomfortable, it's probably because you're not living in your truth, right? When it feels like juicy and literally juicy, like if ever you're sweating or you feel your skin getting warm and you feel the butterflies, it's because you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And remember that, right? If you're not feeling your life move and you don't feel life around you vibrate with that, then something's off. Something's off. She goes into saying that we all want to feel like we belong, but we also want to grow. And she says here, there's this approval of the group. So we experience the innocence of belonging. However, when we begin to grow in directions beyond the group, we experience guilt in regards to the group. The truth of our freedom carries the price of guilt. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. So primarily the yoga population that I teach is more mature. So we'll say 50 and older. Not that we don't have young individuals come in. However, the majority, I'll say 80% of those students are in like moving into retirement or are almost in retirement. And so when I have a student come in who's a little bit younger and can work a little harder or into more advanced practice, I tell them, go. I'm done with you. I can't do any more with you. I want you to go to this teacher, go practice with these individuals, because number one, it's me. If I were to hold this person down, they're not mine, right? I don't own any students, and that person needs to grow. However, I always think, I'm like, what if that person sticks around because of that whole like loyalty? Like I have my loyalty towards Yoga Devita. Life happens, we have to move. And if ever someone disappears from the practice, I always think of it as they're growing and their time with me has served them and now they're moving forward. Or they disappear because life happens and took them away. They come back and there'll be a moment of that expansion and contraction. And that's just life. So do we do that to ourselves? I totally think so. Totally. And this last year for me personally has been a huge year to honor my truth, which is I need to move into my own studies and I have to move away from the business or the teaching others so that I can really dive into who am I. It helps that I live in the woods and with amazing animals and a family. However, being able to turn off me creating for other people so that I can create for myself, which then creates that whole passion and inspiration and motivation, which then moves forward into life. I never did that until this year. Took Thanksgiving and Black Friday off. I've never done that before. So that was a first for me. And it felt really good because I was serving myself, which serves others. So remember, to grow sometimes means that we have to step out of where we were. So then she goes on to say, do it right the first time. Yeah, so have you ever started something new and then decided this is too hard, I don't want to do it anymore? Or you start something and you don't see your improvement or your growth, so you just, stop. And that's for most people. Starting something new, I always tell people, you've got like a honeymoon ride, especially with yoga, right? There's a honeymoon ride when you start. It feels really good. You feel the daily practice, like physically and emotionally, you feel that work throughout your day, maybe for a couple days. And I call it the honeymoon ride. And then 3 months into it, it becomes a habit, right? So the sparks kind of diminish. You're still getting all of those benefits as you were on the honeymoon ride. However, you're not the same as your first month. You're now in your 4th month, which means you've grown. So now you're at this other state. And so when life becomes challenging and you have to start juggling things, you're like, well, I'm not feeling the benefits that much, so I don't really need it. And people will fall off the wagon. And that holds true for so many things, right? When we start feeling good, we decide that we don't need it anymore. When in actuality, it is the thing that's keeping your wheels turning real smoothly, right? So if we just remember to do the things that help us on a daily basis, so do it right the first time. Yogi Bhajan, he is really good about a whole 40 days, 90 days, 120 days to 1,000 days. So 40 days helps create a new pathway. 90 days creates a new habit. 120 days instills that habit, right? You brush your teeth every day when you first get up in the morning. How many days did it take you to understand that that's what you should do, right? So that your teeth feel good? It took you probably at least 120 days to do that. And so now we just do it automatically. So, So this is really neat. She goes on to talk about, can you trust yourself? Can you risk telling yourself the truth? Can you keep the promises you make to yourself and to others? And all of that is 3rd chakra. That's all willpower. And with that, currently right now, we're in the month of December, finishing up the year. So I want you to think about, did you have any resolutions or any intentions in the beginning of the year, and where are you today? Okay. So writing down, what intentions or resolutions did you have first of the year? Where are you today with that? And what are you going to do the rest of the month? Did that intention fall off? Like it's not serving you anymore? Or do you want to get back on the wagon? And what can you do today to start that commitment again? So pause it and do a little journaling for me and come back. So now that you're back, she finishes that little bit with doing it right the first time doesn't always look the same way. Truth is a dance where the rules and certainties change with the circumstances. The fluidity is what makes truth so interesting. So being able to adjust and align. I've always loved moving my body since I can remember. I've just had to adjust over the years so that I can create freedom in my body, fluidity in my body. And so that's kind of cool, right? So truth is fluid. Because of its marriage to nonviolence, truth has fluidity about it. In one situation, truth shows up boldly and courageously. Truth shows up in a most gentle way. So there's 2 ways truth comes up. It's bold or it's gentle. To me, the bold would be like you feel it here, the butterflies. The gentle way would be maybe like a little bit of constriction here in your throat. Or, creatively you're working. And you just get that the creative juices when you're working with that, that's a gentle, like this is it. This is where your truth lies, wherever your creative juices flow, wherever that is. It could be out in nature, it could be with a paintbrush, pencil. All of us have creativity in us. And if you don't know what it is, begin playing. Get outside, get your hands in the dirt. Start building things. And while doing this search of what is my creativity, where does my creativity lie, don't worry about what am I going to build. Just start. And because to me, every masterpiece is in the making of whatever that is. The end product doesn't matter. It's going to be awesome any way you look at it. All right. So she says the compassion of nonviolence keeps truthfulness from being a personal weapon. So that's kind of neat, because sometimes what will happen is we become the victim. We apologize over and over again. Excuses, lack of discipline, and this is all lower chakra work. So all of this, me, myself, and I. So when you're not living in your truth, you're feeling really heavy, really sluggish, really angry, really defensive. And so ask yourself if you have a lot of that come up for you. Truth has weight. Although truth prefers fluidity to rigidity, it also has real substance. When we run from life, try to manage life, or leave our energy scattered here and there, we feel differently than when our whole self shows up with our thoughts, words, and actions congruent and unified. When we are centered in the moment, we can fully meet the ordinaries of life as well as the challenges of life. Dishes are met with the same contact as the arguments are, as are hugs. So that's really cool, because think about the more and more you show up in your truth in a state of not being in harm to yourself or others, you see things so much more clearly. You hear things more clearly. You're moving from a state of compassion and love and kindness. It's a beautiful thing. She says, in a place and time of the greatest of personal horrors. Okay, so this is really cool. So the author was in El Salvador, and she saw mass destruction. And she said, in the midst of all that horror, she never witnessed so much courage and love and joy and community. And I kind of feel like that's where our country is right now. We're in a place of absolute segregation, and we're having a hard time having conversations and not being able to just hear the people in front of us. We always have to defend our side. Most of the time, if we feel like we have to defend ourselves, there's some kind of fear there. So ask yourself, whatever you're believing, is it really yours to believe? Because if it is, then it should, you should feel really solid in it. That whole weight thing. You should really feel solid in your truth. And when you hear other people and they don't agree with you, that's okay. I feel like where we are right now, it's like we're letting the dust come up. It's like, right? People are talking. Thank God people are talking. It's about being able to talk and doing it kindly, and realizing that, number one, I can have conversations with my family, and I can also say, hey, you know what? Let's drop this conversation when it becomes not uncomfortable, because you can have a wonderful conversation, a debate, if you want to call it, and it will be uncomfortable, but you can have it totally be in a place of not hurting each other. There is no violence involved. So have those really meaty conversations. We need to. We need to. Our world needs us to have these great conversations. And so here she says, this effort to construct barriers to hide truth seems to me like a contagious disease in our country. Now, what's funny is that this book was like published quite a few years ago, right? And I swear she wrote it for today. What do you think we are so afraid of? What are we afraid of? Why do we have to sugarcoat crap? Oh, no. So the last thing I would love for you to do is spend a couple minutes after we close here. Ask yourself, what am I not expressing? What are you not expressing to yourself, to your family, to your friends, to your coworker, to your spouse? Allow yourself to sit and actually think about what is deeply seated in you that you have not let yourself feel, move towards, and begin to speak your truth. It's deep and it's amazing work. Speaking from a place of compassion, love, and truth. I mean, what more could you want? So if you didn't pick up your book, go get it. Support this wonderful author, and as well as support yourself. So here, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, comments, I would love to hear them. And beyond that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Satya.